Hello, my name is Roshan Narayan, and thank you for joining us on In20. If you're watching us on YouTube, do
that back foot and protect and pass the ball very, very simple. He is brilliant. If you put leg.
Thanks for joining us on In20. Now, if you realize, Danny is really high up at the stadium, but more importantly, Danny, you had to park your vehicle about half a mile away from the stadium at the Hawthorns and then walk all over, and then what else?
Well, and then do sort of like almost a lap and a half of the stadium to go through the snake system of being COVID secure. I mean, West Brom, fair play, they are taking it very, very seriously. You know, there's several checks. We know it's a problem. But yeah, had to park quite a long way away. But you have to remember as well, this is the highest ground in the Premier League. So, I mean, I'm almost at altitude as well. So no wonder I'm a bit short of breath.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just show us the stadium, where did you start your journey off and how did you reach your gantry?
Oh, well, I mean, so this is where this is behind the scenes type stuff. Look, this is real. This is real stuff. This is the glamour. You know, you have to walk all the way along there in bits and pieces. I think I've got washing machines and air conditioning units going on, and then of course you come out into our position, and it's fabulous. So you get you get a beautiful view of the pitch, but yeah. Getting into these positions on gantries is never as glamorous as it looks on the TV.
It's certainly true, and thank you for risking your life, Danny. I mean, good old times when you could have just walked into the stadium, you could have parked nearby. You know, those are the old days. But do you remember, Danny, back in the day when you used to play? I mean, I used to play for fun as well. You're on the pitch there, you're with your friend, you're about to make a run, and then you gesture to your friend, "Hey, man, I would like the ball over there. Can you put it over there?" Because you used to use your hand to point and ask for him. Unless it's Scott McTominay, the ball won't go there. But anybody else, the ball will go there. In this day and age, you can't do anything. I mean, I'm talking about the goal that was disallowed for Leeds against Crystal Palace. Can you explain? I'll show this to you. Can you explain what this is? What is going on here?
Well, the problem that you have, Roshan, is that the moment you have a definitive line, there is always going to be 1 millimeter where you are onside and 1 millimeter where you are offside. That's it, because there is a line. That doesn't matter whether that line is the armpit, the head, the boot, the knee, a yard of daylight. It does not matter. There will always be that moment. Even if you said, you know, the head was the point of offside. Well, what if the defender's diving forwards with his head and the attacker's diving the other way? But you could have a gap of 6 feet. You know, it's very, very difficult to decide, because, players will be sliding in and throwing themselves in different directions. The problem is that the moment you have that line, that's it. That's offside. And the example I would say is we have to get used to it, and we just have to accept that's what it is. Because in the 100 metres, Usain Bolt is sprinting down. He's being followed by Tyson Gay, whatever it is. You know, it's not about your foot crosses the line first. It's not about your arm that crosses the line first or your head. It's your chest. Yeah. So almost your whole body could go over the line first. But if you're leaning backwards and your chest doesn't cross the line first, you don't win the race. And that's been accepted because that's the rules. I think we just need to get this clear, definitive option of what offside is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I mean, in the spirit of the game, and at the end of the day, that's what football is all about. It gives you hope. It gives a lot of kids out there, no matter where they are in the world, a chance to dream. So imagine Bamford, who you've hammered in the past. He's not had the best season last season. He's come into the Premier League.
I think Hammered's a bit strong.
Okay, you were tough on the man. You were tough on the man.
Critical.
We need to check VAR on what you said. But if that goal had stood, it might have been a different game. We know what the final scoreline between these two teams were, but it would have been a drawn game at that point in time. And you never know these things. Momentum no, you don't. Swings one way.
But then you can say, it's an inch outside the box or it's on the line. Therefore, it's a penalty. It's not a penalty. You're always going to get moments like this. And this is the problem. The moment you have a line and and you have to remember that Stockley Park and VAR are taking this down to almost pixel level. It's so tight. This is no longer about interpretation or with the naked eye or what you think should or shouldn't be. It's almost like if you're driving 30 point and the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, 30.1 miles an hour is breaking the law.
Okay.
Now, you can say it's nitpicking, but where do you draw the line? People say, well, there has to be a bit of leeway. Well, where do you stop the leeway? The leeway has to stop at some point. So are we talking, well, okay, next time you can have 2 inches. But what if the person after that gets 3 inches and then someone gets 6 inches? And then you get more debate. Well, why was that one? As long as it's consistent and as long as it's the same every single time, I think it's one of those horrible things that we just have to put up with.
That's fair enough. I think that was well summarized. And VAR does work. The game between Dortmund and Bayern, Lewandowski's first goal was disallowed. I thought it was going to be a good game. It turned out to be another loss for Dortmund. But Leeds United, a bit of a slump. Will this continue, or can they get out of it?
No, well, I said this all along. If you remember, I said 15th at the start of the season would be sensational. To finish the season maybe with 5 games to go and be safe would be ideal. The way that Leeds play, they will win some games, they will lose some games. It's just their style of play. It's very, very open. It's very, very fast paced. And the game yesterday at 2-1, Leeds can easily get back into it, obviously, and get it back to 2-2, or they can easily let another one in and go to 3-1. They're not like Sheffield United were last season, defensively rigid, keeping clean sheets, week in, week out. Leeds are open, they're expansive. And because of that, they will be very entertaining, but they will lose games and they will win games.
Okay, so you say they will be safe regardless of what happens in the next few matches, at least.
Oh, definitely, because there are some really bad teams in this division at the moment, and in fact, I'm here possibly going to watch one of them today. Here at the Hawthorns, watching West Brom.
I hope you get out of that stadium safely after that statement.
Well, there's no one here, so.
Fair point.
I don't think the players are going to come up on the gantry and get me.
That's true. I mean, but some United fans might take offense to my Scott McTominay joke earlier on. But recently, we saw Mauricio Pochettino back, on the telly in the UK, and everyone's going like, "Is this a sign of things to come?" We've spoken about him in Manchester United, but if you were him, and just say you were him, and you had an opportunity between getting the job at Real Madrid, because Zidane isn't exactly doing well there right now, or Manchester United with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if you were Mauricio Pochettino, who would you pick?
I think I'd go Manchester United. It's still one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's a project.
Real Madrid?
Well, because it's probably something that he will be given the opportunity to improve, to work with players. Real Madrid is still about Galacticos, and bringing in super stellar names. And there's a lot of powerful players in that Madrid dressing room still that run the show, that have an awful lot of influence. I think at Manchester United, he walks in, he'll have instant respect, and he will be afforded the opportunity to rebuild that team, to coach that team and develop that team. And I think that's what, Pochettino is all about. He's a bit like Bielsa. Obviously, he looks up to him. He wants to be on the training ground. He doesn't want to be in the boardroom or doing the media or doing press or anything like that. He wants to be on the training ground. And I just think it would be a better fit for him going to Manchester United.
And if he does go to Manchester United, do you think he would keep Paul Pogba, or would he make sure he's on his way?
If he performs, he stays. But you go in as a manager, say, right, okay, this is how we're going to play. This is what I expect. These are my rules. If you don't adhere to them, you won't play. Simple as that. And you give maybe players 6 months. And if it doesn't work out for them, then obviously you decide that enough is enough. And you have to say, right, okay, time to move on.
Well, that would be a stellar debate if that happens. And okay, for you, Pochettino is in the reckoning for Manchester United if he does choose that team. But would he stick with the likes of... Now, when I was in Brazil, that's when I first met you, I was corrected. It wasn't Fred, it was Frege. He was a striker at that point of time. This is a midfielder for Manchester United. Would he stick with Frege and Scott McTominay as the two holding midfielders, or will he replace them?
No, I think you'd look to bring in... You're always looking to improve and bring in better players. And if there are better players available, you bring them in. Of course, you develop what you've got and you try and coach what you've got. But if you're manager of one of the biggest clubs in the world, you would expect some kind of transfer budget to bring in players. You'd be looking at, I think you'd probably look at a centre-half, a midfielder and a striker. The rest around that is pretty good. You've got good attacking midfield players. You've got Bruno Fernandes that's still playing fantastically well. You've got Donny van de Beek that you've brought in that has done incredibly well. You've got a lot of good players. Those players need improving. The team needs improving. I still think it needs more of a structure, if I'm honest. But I think you'd have to bring in 3 or 4 players.
Okay, now let's put on your thinking camp, Danny. I'm going to give you a few choices here. If you were to bring in holding midfielders or defensive midfielders or whatever they call in this day and age, and if I were to give you two names, Declan Rice or Kante, who would you pick if they were both available? Because Kante is unsettled at Chelsea from time to time. Declan Rice does have a future, but if I were to mention those two names from the Premier League, who would you go for?
I think it's a difficult. If you want instant success, I think you probably go with N'Golo Conte. That needs a fresh challenge. If you're looking about value for money and longevity, you go with Declan Rice. So I think it depends on. Let's say N'Golo Conte probably gives you 2 seasons and probably has an instant impact. Declan Rice will have an impact, maybe not quite on the same level, because I think obviously N'Golo Conte needs a new challenge. That's how it seems at the moment, to put him back in his best position. Obviously, you've got the Euros coming up next year as well, whatever it might be, and World Cups after that. So, if it was right this second, I would go with N'Golo Conte because he's been there, seen it, done it, and understands it all.
And for you, would you pick Declan Rice over Scott McTominay, or Scott McTominay is a better player than Declan Rice at this point of time?
Are you really going to ask me that question? I think you know the answer.
Okay, I will pull that question back. I know what the answer is. Scott
Declan
McTominay. Okay. Two other names from. Okay, I know. I'm just kidding. Come on, Danny. Everyone has to have a sense of humor. You got to walk half a mile to the stadium. Two names from Europe. One from Roma and the other one from Inter Milan. Fabian from Roma and Marcelo Brozovic from Inter Milan. I've been watching a bit of Italian football for the past 10 years, and I kind of like these two players. Would you prefer one of them or stick with the player from the Premier League because they know what it's all about and, as you mentioned, instant impact? Yeah,
if you talk about instant impact, I think you go with players that have played in the Premier League. You can see that, when you bring players in from abroad, it's always a little bit of a gamble, getting used to new surroundings, new things. And there's so much going on in the world right now, obviously with COVID and travel restrictions and everything else. Can you bring your family over? Does that unsettle you? There's all these types of things that come into play. I'd be tempted to stick with a Premier League player that's been there, seen it and done it. It's the old adage of, why are English players more expensive or young English players? Because they're just used to the country. They're used to the surroundings. They know the Premier League inside out. And it's the same theory. If given the choice right this moment, I would definitely go with Premier League players. Okay. And something you mentioned as well last week was the fact that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had to find this fire and have a go at his players to, get them motivated. Yeah, they picked up 3 points against Everton. But what he did was go at someone, and that was the Premier League itself, stating what did he say? We were set to fail. Yeah, use that. Right, I've always said this. The Premier League starts on the same day and it finishes on the same day. There'll be some weeks where you get 3 days rest. There'll be some weeks where you get 4 days rest. There'll be other times whatever. It works itself out over the course of the season. You all play 38 games in the same period of time. If you're successful and you're in European competition as well, then you have more money to have a bigger squad. Deal with it. It's just how football is. I think that the one season that I played was probably my best season at Leeds. I think I played 75 games that season. Or, 60, late 60, 70 games, 75 games, because it was 17 games in the Champions League, Cup games, Premier League games, international games, all sorts were going on. It's just what you have to deal with. So I tell you what, Ollie, don't moan at the press, don't moan at the Premier League. Maybe have a little bit of a dig at your players that they're not being consistent enough. Wow. But that's the first time I just say, Roshan, I don't know if you can see, we've just got the last post playing here, or they're just rehearsing for the last post. You can hear I'm not sure where he is at the moment, the trumpeter. He's on the far side, I think. Yeah, I mean, do you need a minute of silence or something? I don't want to be disrespectful. No. I think they're just warming up, but obviously, 11 o'clock here, obviously, where the whole of the Premier League, the whole of, the UK, will remember those. Obviously, it's a very poignant day, obviously, and it means different things to different people around the world. I understand that. But of course, here, obviously, it's a very poignant moment. And obviously that's why obviously all the poppies are being worn on the shirts this weekend. Much respect, Danny. Thank you for doing this. And I do apologize if it is. Disrespectful. I think no, not at all. It's just warming up. But it's one of those when you hear that surreal moments. Yeah, when you hear that trumpeter playing that song, and especially as it's in sort of an empty stadium, and it's one of the only times I think I've ever observed in a football stadium where football fans aren't always the best behaved. I think we know that. When it's a full stadium and there is complete silence, there is something quite eerie, but also peaceful and unbelievably respectful about it.
That's beautifully put, Danny. But we must move on. I do apologize. Moving on to Arsenal, and William, who has just come in from Chelsea, has said that, you know what, Arsenal can win the title by at least in 2 years' time. In 2022, they will be crowned champions of the Premier League. Is that him just trying to warm himself up with the fans, or the fact that he's had one too many caipirinha?
So could West Brom. West Brom could do a Leicester. They could win it. It's not likely to happen, is it? Think of what Leicester done. Almost got relegated and then obviously turned it around and won the league.
Yep.
5 years ago. Yeah, Arsenal. They might be challenging in 2 years' time, but I don't see it because you're still going to need massive investment, to compete with Manchester City. You expect Manchester United to get better in that time. Tottenham, look at what they're doing. The top six are going to be very, very strong over the next 4 or 5 years. So, yes, you've got to have that ambition and you've got to try. Could they? Yes. Will they? No.
Fair enough. But if you were to compare them to, would you say a team like Manchester United is closest to them in terms of restructuring or rebuilding? With
Manchester United have money. And
Arsenal don't.
Well, they haven't spent it in the last 10 years, so you would have to say no.
Okay.
So generally, the team with the best players wins the league. To have the best players, you have to have the most money, or there or thereabouts. You look at teams that have won. Look at Manchester City. Look at Liverpool. People say, well, they didn't spend much. Well, they did. They bought Van Dijk. They bought Alisson. They bought other players within that structure as well. Yes, you can bring so many players through, but you need money to have the best players. As a general rule, there will always be the odd exception. But unless Arsenal start spending to compete, where are these players suddenly going to come from? Where is Bellerin suddenly going to become a Premier League winning right back?
Yep.
And so they will have to add. So Arsenal will have a chance, but they need to spend money to do that.
Manchester City loves spending money. They've spent a lot of money on defenders. Liverpool have been spending money as well. They brought in new boys. They suddenly... almost everyone that has come in under Jurgen Klopp, almost everyone has just gone off the Richter scale in terms of instant impact. I mean, apart from Keita, maybe it took some time for him to.
So it took a while for Fabinho as well, to come in. So yes, but who did? Mo Salah, nobody expected him to be that good. Mane was a good player. They've brought in good players. Let's be honest. And Jurgen Klopp is getting the best out of them. And that's that's your job as a manager. He's obviously a fantastic coach, but that goes through to Liverpool's recruitment, from 3, 4, 5 seasons ago, and they will be doing that now. They will be looking right. Who is the replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold? In 4 or 5 years' time. That's how far ahead you've got to come down and look at things. So that's what they'll be doing.
And if Jurgen Klopp can do one thing, if he does do it privately, would he be able to pull Mo Salah aside and say, listen, your little theatrics is getting a bit over the top with your diving? Because the media is starting to pick it up, and ex-pundits are starting to slam it as well, and not politely slam it. Absolutely have a go at Mo Salah.
I've said many times, if there's contact, you have the right to go down. But I don't think you can go down screaming, shouting, rolling around, like a spaghetti western where, people are falling off balconies in slow motion and that type of thing. You have to be realistic about it. But, Rose, we're running out of time. I appreciate that. Are we not going to talk about Fulham penalties?
Oh, you really want to go there?
Oh, yes, I want to go there. I'm coming
off you, Danny Mills.
I mean, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if that was a minute before half time, I'd have pulled him off at half time. That'd have been it. Not playing for me in the second half. No chance. You're talking about the last minute of a game. You're desperate for points and you try a Panenka. I mean, that's just ridiculous. The whole point of a penalty is it's a free shot from 12 yards. It's you against the goalkeeper. Just put the ball in the back of the net. Look at what Alan Shearer used to do. Just score. That's the whole point of it. And I think that's the issue a bit maybe with the modern day player. It's, I want to look good. I want to be the superstar. I want to do something that's going to get me on social media. How about just score the goal and then run off and go, okay, I've got a point for my team. I mean, yes, it's great when it works, and it looks magnificent, but it's 12 yards out. If you're a Premier League striker and you can't kick the ball into the corner of the net from 12 yards within a yard of the post with a bit of power,
Yeah.
you shouldn't really be playing. And that goes probably right 99 times out of 100. The Panenka, maybe 50% of the time. It was a joke of a penalty. And I'll be surprised if he plays next week.
On that note, thank you very much. Danny. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love the stadium. I'll let you go, my friend, and I shall see you next week. Hopefully, the next stadium you're at, you don't need to walk half a mile to get into it. Thank you, Danny. Goodbye. Take care of yourself. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube, and if you're watching us on the Rakyat Post on Facebook. Thank you very much. But do also follow us on our Twitter and Instagram account. Till the next time, bye.